I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume, so I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. So we continue reading in the Gospels again. We've read the Sermon on the Mount. We are now in Galilee, or we're still in Galilee. That's where he was when he delivers this sermon. We're returning now in the narratives. He has healed the centurion's servant, and he has raised the son of the widow of Nain. The first time he has raised the dead so far. And in our last reading, we read John the Baptist sends a couple of his disciples to Christ to learn about Christ and see that Christ is the Messiah. And Christ testifies of the greatness of John. We read that in Luke. We're going to read the same thing again now in Matthew. In this video, we have a Joseph Smith translation. Now, what the Joseph Smith translation is, this is a translation or correction done by Joseph Smith to restore those passages that have been lost or corrupted over the years. This is Matthew chapter 11, and we're going to read verses 1 through 19. And it came to pass, when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. Now when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples, and said unto him, Art thou he that should come, or do we seek for another? Jesus answered and said unto them, Go and shew John again those things which ye do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. There's not a whole lot different here than there was in Luke. We do get in Luke that when these disciples came and started asking him, his message was to first heal everybody and then tell them to go back and talk to John about what they had witnessed. And we are told that they did see it. It says, what you do see and hear, but we're not told that he did this as an immediate response. There's that difference. Other than that, everything's the same. A little bit different on wording, but a little more confusing on the wording, really, but it's the same thing. John is not asking them to bring him proof of Christ. He knows who Christ is. He is sending them so that they can know who Christ is. Verse 7. And as they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. But what went ye out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. We do get a little bit more here. We got the same basic, what went you out to see, and the testimony that John is the greatest. So it says of those born of women, not just prophets, but those born of women, none is greater than John the Baptist. That might be a little bit greater of a praise, because technically there's only 2 people who weren't born of a woman, and that's, Adam would be the only one not really born of a woman. So this is very high praise. Christ we know is the greatest, and according to the Doctrine and Covenants, Adam is second only to Christ. Adam is, of everybody other than Christ, Adam was the greatest man to live on this earth. And John the Baptist is right there with him. That is high praise. But then we do have this statement here, if you will receive it, this is Elias. Now, we've talked about this before when we talked about Christ being baptized and the testimony of John the Baptist and everything, and even the Joseph Smith translation clarified things beautifully. Remember, there are 2 Eliases. The one comes to prepare, and the second comes to restore. John is Elias. This is a priesthood calling, in a sense, to come and prepare the way for the Lord. To call him Elias is a great thing. But let us finish this out, verse 16. But whereunto shall I liken this generation? It is like unto children sitting in the markets, and calling unto their fellows, and saying, We have piped unto you, and ye have not danced. We have mourned unto you, and ye have not lamented. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, He hath a devil. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, Behold, a man gluttonous and a winebibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. But wisdom is justified of her children. So that's almost exactly what we had in Luke, almost word for word. So again, it's the hypocrisy of the Pharisees. The hypocrisy of people, they condemn John for not drinking, they condemn Christ because he's drinking. It's the hypocrisy of the people. They will always find a way to reject those who are sent by God. The wicked will always find a way to reject the truth, no matter where it comes from. But now, let us look at the Joseph Smith translation here in Matthew. In verse 3, we have this addition where it says, And said unto him, Art thou he of whom it is written in the prophets that should come? So it's making clear that they're asking, are you the one that is being prophesied of? But then we have a few minor corrections. It says, instead of go and shew John again, it says, go and tell John again. In verse 5, it is not the blind receive their sight, but how the blind receive their sight. So you're going to tell them what you've seen and heard, how this is happening. In verse 16, and blessed is he and blessed is John, and whosoever shall not be offended in me. So John is not offended in Christ. Christ is blessing John, saying, if you're going to be like John, you're good. Don't be offended in me. In verse 7, we have this added to the end there, where it says, What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind. It says, Was it a reed shaken with the wind? And they answered him, No. That's interesting. And then in verse 8, we pick it up, and he said, But what went ye out for to see? Was it a man clothed in soft raiment? In verse 10, For this is he, is altered to, For this is the one of whom it is written. Then we have this in verses 13 and 14. These are very short verses in King James. It says, For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, and if you will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. We have this in the Joseph Smith translation. But the days will come when the violent shall have no power. For all the prophets and the law prophesied that it should be thus until John. Yea, as many as have prophesied have foretold of these days. And if ye will receive it, verily he was the Elias who was for to come and prepare all things. So again, we have this clarification that there are two different Eliases, one to prepare, one to restore. But the day will come when the violent will have no power. The violent reign up until this time, but their power will be destroyed. And it's destroyed in the atonement of Christ. Of course, 17 just changes unto to for, so we have piped unto you, you have not mourned, we have piped unto you and we have mourned unto you is changed to we have mourned for you. And in verse 19 says, Behold, a man gluttonous is corrected to behold a gluttonous man. Simple change. But we also have this addition at the end where it says, But wisdom is justified of her children. The correction states, But I say unto you, wisdom is justified of her children. But nothing earth-shattering there. I do like the clarification of John being Elias who would come to prepare, and that the power of the violent will be undone. But we're going to leave that here. We are going to pick this up again in Luke. Going to finish out Luke chapter 7 in the next video, so I will see you there.